Pay close attention to what you're about to see, because nothing about the story makes sense unless you understand these final 31 seconds. March 14th, 2024. Maplewood, Virginia. A residential security camera, mounted high on the back corner of a quiet suburban home, activates automatically. Motion detected. The footage is clean, stable, unedited. It captures exactly 31 seconds of ordinary life, the kind of moment that happens every day in thousands of backyards across America, unnoticed, unremarkable, and never meant to be remembered. But this moment will become evidence. The camera shows a stone patio behind a modest, well-kept house. Early evening light stretches across the ground. The air is calm. Nothing feels rushed. Nothing feels wrong. An elderly white man with thinning white hair sits in a wheelchair near the center of the frame.
His posture is relaxed.
He's not slumped or defeated. He's waiting. He's looking toward the back door of the house, as if expecting someone. Then the door opens. A black woman steps outside. She's 35 years old. She's wearing navy blue medical scrubs, the kind worn by home health aides, nurses, caregivers. Her hair is pulled back neatly. She moves with familiarity, not obligation. This isn't someone clocking out. This is someone at home. Her name is Alicia Turner. She walks toward the man in the wheelchair, smiling as she approaches. There's no hesitation in her steps. No distance. No professional detachment. She bends slightly, placing her hand on the armrest of the wheelchair, a subtle, intimate gesture, and then she leans forward.
And she kisses him.
Not a quick peck. Not a polite gesture. A real kiss. It lasts 4 full seconds. For seconds that will later be dissected in court, replayed frame by frame, frozen, zoomed, debated. But right now, in this moment, it's just two people expressing affection when they think no one is watching. The man lifts his hand and gently touches her cheek. The camera records everything. Alicia straightens up, steps behind the wheelchair, grips the handles, and begins pushing him back toward the house. They move slowly, unhurried. At exactly 6:35 p.m., they disappear from the camera's view. That's it. No struggle. No raised voices. No warning. This is the last time Alicia Turner is ever seen alive. For the next 11 days, her name floods local news. Search parties form. Flyers are taped to telephone poles. Detectives retrace her steps. Volunteers comb parking lots, trails, wooded areas. Friends and coworkers cling to hope. Her phone remains silent. No ransom demand ever comes. Then, on March 25th, 2024, at 6:47 in the morning, a call comes into the Maplewood Police Department. The voice on the line is male.
Calm.
Controlled. Slightly distorted, as if the caller is intentionally masking his tone. He doesn't ramble. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't hesitate. Riverside Warehouse. Unit 4B. There's a body. The line goes dead. Detectives arrive at the warehouse less than an hour later. Riverside Industrial Park sits on the outskirts of town, mostly abandoned. The warehouse in question hasn't been operational in over 3 years. No employees. No security guards. No cameras. Just rows of locked metal units collecting dust. Unit 4B is padlocked. They force it open. Inside is a small back room, locked from the outside. No windows. Bare concrete floor. The air is stale. When detectives cut the lock and open the door, the smell tells them everything before they see her. Alicia Turner is lying on the floor. Her hands are zip-tied behind her back. There are ligature marks around her neck. She's still wearing the same navy scrubs from the day she disappeared. The medical examiner will later determine she's been dead for 11 days. 11 days. For nearly 2 weeks, while the city searched for her, while her loved ones waited for a call that never came, Alicia Turner's body was locked in a forgotten room, alone, discarded, and deliberately hidden. At first glance, it looks like a random abduction. A woman taken from a parking lot. A crime of opportunity. Wrong place, wrong time. That's what most people assume. But this case was never random. This wasn't about chance. It wasn't about violence for violence's sake. It wasn't about a stranger crossing paths with the wrong person. This was about money. $2.5 million. A revised will. And a family that decided eliminating one woman was easier than accepting she mattered. To understand how this happened, how a caregiver became a target, how love became a motive, and how greed turned into murder, we have to go back. Not to the day Alicia disappeared. Not even to the moment she kissed him on that patio. We have to go back to the day a family stopped showing up. September 12th, 2021. That's when William Hargrove's life broke in half. 79 years old. Retired. Widowed. Driving home when a pickup truck runs a red light and slams into the driver's side of his car at nearly 50 miles per hour. William survives the crash, but his spine doesn't. Multiple vertebrae are shattered. The damage is permanent. From the waist down, he is paralyzed for the rest of his life. When he wakes up in the hospital, doctors explain the reality carefully. There will be no recovery. No miracle. No walking again. His independence is gone. At first, his family shows up. His son, Bradley. His daughter, Christine. His grandson, Tyler. The first month, they visit regularly. The second month, less. By the third month, almost nothing. In the first year after the accident, Bradley visits twice. Christine once. Tyler not at all. William spends his 80th birthday alone in his house, sitting in his wheelchair, staring at a phone that never rings. Later, investigators will recover a journal entry dated November 2021. The handwriting is shaky but deliberate. My family vanished the moment I became a burden. I was only valuable when I could write checks. 3 weeks later, on December 14th, 2021, William hires a home health aide through Premier Care Services. That decision, made quietly, without drama, sets everything in motion. Because the agency sends their best. Her name is Alicia Turner. And this is where the story truly begins.
The woman who stayed.
Every tragedy has a quiet beginning. Not the moment something breaks, but the moment someone chooses to care. For William Hargrove, that moment came on a cold December morning in 2021 when a woman he'd never met before knocked on his front door. Her name was Alicia Turner. She was 32 years old then, born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. The first person in her family to ever make it to college. Nursing school specifically. She had plans. Real plans. The kind built slowly, carefully, over years of sacrifice. But life intervened the way it often does, without warning and without mercy. Her mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer during Alicia's second year of nursing school. Alicia didn't hesitate. She withdrew from classes, moved back home, and became her mother's full-time caregiver. For 6 months, she managed medications, appointments, pain, fear, and the slow understanding that nothing could be done. When her mother died, Alicia was 29 years old, emotionally exhausted, financially drained, and unable to return to school. She never went back. Instead, Alicia became a certified home health aide, a job that paid less, offered fewer protections, and demanded far more emotional labor. But it was work she understood. Work that mattered. Work that felt familiar. By the time Premier Care Services assigned her to William Hargrove, Alicia had nearly 8 years of experience and a reputation that followed her. 47 families. A 4.9 star rating. Reviews that use the same words over and over again. Kind, patient, present. William didn't greet her when she arrived for her first shift. He sat in his wheelchair near the living room window, staring outside, eyes unfocused, body still. Alicia introduced herself. He didn't respond. She explained why she was there. Nothing. No nod. No acknowledgement. This wasn't rudeness. This was resignation. William had given up on people. Alicia didn't try to fill the silence. She didn't force conversation or ask medical questions right away. Instead, after a few moments, she asked him one thing. "Mr. Hargrove, what's your favorite meal?" He didn't look at her. She waited. "The one you'd make," she added, "if you could stand in a kitchen again." That did it. William turned his head. Someone wasn't asking what he needed. They weren't asking about medication, blood pressure, or mobility. They were asking what he wanted. "Homemade lasagna," he said quietly. "My wife's recipe." Alicia nodded. No reaction. No pity. Just acknowledgement. 2 days later, she came back with groceries. She adjusted the kitchen so William could reach the counter from his wheelchair. Lowered bowls. Slid cutting boards closer. Let him participate, not observe. They cooked together, slowly, awkwardly, imperfectly. When they finally sat down to eat, William broke down. He cried. It was the first time he'd felt alive since the accident. From that day forward, Alicia did more than her job required. Not because she was told to, not because she was paid to, because she chose to. She noticed William loved jazz. So she brought her own record collection and played Miles Davis during physical therapy sessions. She learned he used to write poetry, so she tracked down his favorite book and read to him every afternoon. She took him to parks, restaurants, and public places, not to show him off, but to remind him that he still belonged in the world. People stopped seeing a wheelchair. They saw a man again. And slowly, William started to change. He laughed more, smiled more. He sat up straighter. He talked about the future, something he hadn't done since the accident. He stopped writing in his journal about abandonment and started writing about days he enjoyed. One evening in June of 2022, after nearly a year of working together, William asked a question he'd been holding in for months. Why waste your time with a broken old man? Alicia didn't answer immediately. She looked at him, really looked at him, and said something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. You're not broken, she said. You're just waiting for someone to remind you that you're still here. That was the moment William realized he was falling in love. He didn't say it out loud. He couldn't. He was 80 years old. She was 33. Caregiver and patient. The gap was impossible, inappropriate, unthinkable. So, he kept it to himself. But feelings don't disappear just because they're inconvenient. By early 2023, they had developed a rhythm that felt more like partnership than employment. Alicia arrived every morning at 8 a.m. They ate breakfast together,
Did therapy.
talked about politics, books, memories, regrets. William noticed how Alicia smiled when she entered a room, how her presence changed the air. And Alicia noticed how William watched her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. Eventually, she realized the truth she'd been avoiding. She was falling in love too. On September 8th, 2023, William finally said it. I'm in love with you, he told her. Not because you take care of me, because of who you are. I know I'm 82. I know this is insane. But I had to tell you. Alicia left without answering. William didn't sleep that night. But the next morning, Alicia walked straight to his wheelchair, knelt down in front of him, and said the words he never thought he'd hear. I don't care that you're 82. I don't care what anyone thinks. I love you too. They became a couple that day. They kept it secret. They knew his family would never understand. And for a while, it felt like maybe they didn't have to. They were wrong.
Blood and entitlement.
Families don't usually arrive loudly when something is wrong. They arrive when something is threatened. For more than 2 years after William Hargrove's accident, his family barely existed in his daily life. Phone calls were rare. Visits were ceremonial at best. Holidays came and went with polite excuses and empty promises. William learned not to expect anything. Alicia became the constant, the only person who showed up without being asked. That's why the timing mattered. On January 18th, 2024, nearly 8 months after his last visit, Bradley Hargrove suddenly appeared at his father's house. No call ahead, no warning, just a knock at the door. Phone records later revealed something critical. The week before this visit, Bradley had contacted his accountant asking about options for accessing his inheritance early. He was short on cash. He needed money. And he believed, as he always had, that what belonged to his father would one day belong to him. Bradley walked into the living room expecting to see the same thing he'd seen for years, a frail, isolated man being tended to by hired help. That's not what he found. William and Alicia were sitting close together, hands intertwined, laughing at something small and unimportant. There was no caregiver posture, no professional distance. They weren't patient and aid. They were a couple. Bradley froze. Then he exploded. He accused Alicia of manipulation, of exploitation, of taking advantage of a vulnerable old man. The words came fast, sharp, fueled by disgust and panic. And for the first time in years, William fought back. Where were you, he demanded, when I was alone? When I needed someone? Alicia was here. She's the only one who cared. Bradley stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. That night, he made calls. First to his sister, Christine, then to his son, Tyler. Emergency meeting. The next day, all three of them returned to William's house together. Not to apologize. Not to check on his health. They came with a plan disguised as concern. Dad, we're worried about Alicia, Christine said. There's nothing to worry about, William replied calmly. Bradley pushed harder. We think you should fire her. That was the moment something broke. William lost his composure entirely. You abandoned me for 3 years, he shouted. And now you want to take away the one person who gave a damn about me? Get out. All of you. They left, but they didn't let it go. What followed wasn't a spontaneous reaction. It was a calculated response. They hired a private investigator to dig into Alicia's past. Education, employment, finances, relationships, criminal history. The report came back clean. No arrests, no complaints, no red flags. Next, they consulted attorneys, quietly exploring whether William could be declared mentally incompetent. If they could prove he wasn't of sound mind, they could regain control. Medical records were reviewed. Doctors were consulted. Psychological evaluations examined. The verdict was unanimous. William Hargrove was completely lucid.
Every legal door closed.
And that's when William made a decision of his own. On March 5th, 2024, he contacted his attorney, Richard Thornton, and requested a private meeting. No family present. No discussion. Just paperwork. William revised his will. Bradley's inheritance dropped from $1.5 million to $200,000. Christine's from $1.5 million to $200,000. Tyler's from $200,000 to $100,000. Alicia Turner was left $2.5 million, plus the house and all remaining assets. But William added one final clause. If any family member were convicted of any crime against Alicia Turner, their inheritance would be void and donated entirely to charity. The documents were signed, witnessed, legally airtight. William believed he had protected the woman he loved. What he didn't know was that his attorney's assistant, Karen Ross, was Christine Hargrove's best friend from college. 3 days later, Karen made a phone call she should never have made. Christine listened as she was told everything. That night, Bradley, Christine, and Tyler gathered at Bradley's house. There was no denial, no disbelief, only panic.
We need to challenge it, Bradley said.
That could take years, Christine replied. We'll lose. Tyler asked the question no one wanted to say out loud. So, what do we do? The room went silent. Then Bradley spoke, quietly. If something happens to Alicia before Dad dies, the bequest is invalid. The money reverts to us. Christine stared at him. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, Bradley said, we make sure she's not around to collect. Police would later recover deleted text messages from that night. March 9th. We can't let her steal what's ours. Christine asked what that meant. Bradley answered plainly. Tyler has connections. People who handle problems. Tyler hesitated. He knew someone. An ex-Marine. Dangerous. Experienced. This wasn't hypothetical anymore. Are we really doing this? Tyler asked. Bradley's response was simple. Do we have a choice? That's the moment the line was crossed. Not in a warehouse. Not in a parking lot. But in a living room by people who believed blood entitled them to everything. Within hours, the plan was in motion. And Alicia Turner, unaware, unprotected, and still doing her job, became a target.
The plan that paid for murder.
Murders don't always begin with rage. Some begin with spreadsheets, phone calls, and calm voices agreeing on a price. By the morning of March 10th, 2024, the Hargrove family had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. What had started as resentment hardened into resolve. Alicia Turner was no longer a person to them. She was an obstacle. And obstacles they believed could be removed. Tyler Hargrove made the call. The man he contacted was Vincent Cross, a former Marine with a dishonorable discharge and a record that followed him everywhere. Assault charges, violence, instability. Vincent wasn't a stranger to intimidation or force, and more importantly, he wasn't a stranger to Tyler. The two had served in the same unit years earlier. Tyler knew exactly what kind of man he was calling. Vincent didn't ask many questions. He listened. Then he named a price. $50,000. Half up front, half after. No bargaining. No hesitation. Vincent brought in a second man, Rayon Silva. Smaller, quieter, just as dangerous. Together, they'd done this kind of work before. Disappearances. Jobs where no one asked questions afterward. Bank records would later show that on March 11th, Bradley Hargrove withdrew $25,000 in cash. 2 days later, on March 13th, another $25,000. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't emotional. This was funded, scheduled, and deliberate. Vincent and Rayon began surveillance immediately. They watched William Hargrove's house from a distance, learned the rhythms, the routines. When Alicia arrived, when she left, which car she drove, where she parked, how long she stayed. They learned everything that could be weaponized. For 3 days, Alicia went about her life unaware she was being studied. She cooked. She cleaned. She talked. She laughed. She made plans for the future. And while she did, 2 men mapped out how to end it. March 14th, 2024. A Thursday. Alicia's last workday before a scheduled week off. William had no idea he was waking up on the final morning of Alicia's life. But he did know something important. He had a surprise planned. A ring, purchased 2 weeks earlier. A proposal he'd been rehearsing quietly in his head. Alicia arrived at 8 a.m., just like every other morning. They made breakfast together. Scrambled eggs.
Toast.
William attempted to flip a pancake from his wheelchair and failed miserably. They laughed until their sides hurt. It was a normal morning. A happy one. Throughout the day, nothing felt different. Therapy. Music. Conversation. Comfort. But 3 blocks away, Vincent and Rayon waited. Around 11 a.m., Bradley texted Tyler. "Today. Go." Tyler responded minutes later. Already in motion. The decision was final. By early evening, the weather was warm for March. The kind of day that feels like permission to slow down. Around 6:30 p.m., Alicia and William decided to sit outside on the patio. The security camera activated. At 6:34 p.m., Alicia pushed William's wheelchair onto the stone patio. They talked quietly. She smiled. He said something that made her laugh. Then Alicia did something that would later echo through a courtroom. She walked around to the front of the wheelchair,
Bent down.
placed her hand on the armrest, and kissed him. A real kiss. 4 seconds. William lifted his hand and touched her cheek. This was not a caregiver comforting a patient. This was love. At 6:35 p.m., Alicia pushed William back inside. The camera stopped recording. The moment ended. Inside the house, Alicia helped William settle in. He asked her to stay for dinner. She couldn't. She had errands to run, but promised she'd see him tomorrow. Tomorrow. At 6:47 p.m., Alicia walked out the door, kissed William goodbye, got into her green Honda, and drove away. Vincent followed. Alicia headed toward town, stopping at a grocery store she'd visited dozens of times before. At 6:58 p.m., she parked near the back of the lot. Fewer people, quieter. She stepped out, opened her trunk, and reached for her shopping bags. That's when the white van pulled up behind her. Vincent and Rayon moved fast. One grabbed her from behind. Alicia screamed, fought, kicked, but she never stood a chance. Vincent outweighed her by nearly 100 pounds. Rayon zip-tied her wrists. A hand covered her mouth. 30 seconds. That's all it took. A store employee heard something strange. Looked up. Saw a white van speeding away. Thought it was odd, but not enough to call police. Alicia's car sat there with the trunk open. Door ajar.
Purse on the ground.
Groceries scattered. 40 minutes passed before anyone noticed. By the time police were called at 7:44 p.m., Alicia Turner was already at the warehouse. Riverside. Unit 4B. Abandoned. Empty.
Perfect.
They carried her inside, into a small back room with no windows and one door. Her hands were still zip-tied behind her back. And then Vincent did something investigators would later describe as the coldest detail of the entire crime. He talked to her. He told her why she was there, who paid for it, that she was in the way of $2.5 million. Then, at approximately 7:45 p.m., Vincent strangled Alicia Turner to death. She struggled. She fought. She couldn't break free. 3 minutes later, she stopped moving. They left her body on the floor, locked the door from the outside, and drove away. 2 hours later, they met Tyler at a rest stop 40 miles out of town. Tyler handed over the remaining $25,000 in cash. "Is it done?" Tyler asked. Vincent nodded. "She's gone." Tyler went home. He arrived at 10:17 p.m. His wife asked where he'd been. "Business dinner," he said. And then he went to bed.
The search, the lies, and the waiting.
Disappearance doesn't announce itself with certainty. It creeps in slowly, disguised as delay, misunderstanding, or bad timing. At 7:44 p.m. on March 14, 2024, Maplewood police responded to what initially looked like an abandoned vehicle in a grocery store parking lot. A green Honda sat crooked near the back of the lot. The trunk was open, the driver's door ajar. Grocery bags lay scattered across the pavement. A purse rested on the ground beside the car. Inside the purse was Alicia Turner's phone, her wallet, her keys, everything she would need to leave, except herself. Officers immediately recognized the signs of a struggle. This wasn't a forgotten errand or a car trouble situation. This was an abduction. Within minutes, supervisors were notified. The parking lot was taped off. Store employees were questioned. Security footage was requested. But the footage showed nothing useful. No clear faces. No readable plates. Just a white van entering and leaving the frame too quickly to identify. By 9 p.m., Alicia Turner was officially listed as a missing person under suspicious circumstances. At 9:30 p.m., a detective knocked on William Hargrove's door. William had been waiting. Alicia never missed calling when she got home. Never. When the detective explained that her car had been found abandoned, that there were signs she'd been taken, William's body seemed to collapse inward. He gripped the arms of his wheelchair and asked one question over and over. Did she say anything? Did she leave a message? She hadn't. William told the detective everything. The relationship, the family's hostility, the confrontations, the will. Nothing was held back. There was no confusion in his mind about motive. He named names: Bradley, Christine, Tyler. He told police about the accusations, the threats, the tension that had filled the house in recent months. Detectives listened carefully. The next morning, March 15th, all 3 family members were brought in for questioning. Each of them denied involvement. Bradley said he'd been home all night. His wife confirmed it. Christine said she'd been at work until 8 p.m. Co-workers verified her timeline. Tyler said he'd been at a business dinner. Receipts supported the claim. On paper, their alibis checked out. And without a body, without witnesses, without physical evidence tying them directly to the disappearance, police had nothing to hold them on. Days passed. Then a week. No ransom demand ever came. No communication. No proof Alicia was alive. Search teams canvassed the area. Flyers went up across Maplewood and neighboring towns. Social media posts multiplied. Candlelight vigils formed. Volunteers walked wooded trails and industrial zones. Nothing. Inside William's house, time stopped. He stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. Stopped speaking much at all. He sat in his wheelchair, facing the front door, as if Alicia might walk back in at any moment. Detectives checked on him regularly. Hospice staff expressed concern. His health deteriorated rapidly, not from illness, but from grief. Then, 11 days after Alicia vanished, the phone rang. March 25th, 2024. 6:47 a.m. The anonymous call. Riverside Warehouse. Unit 4B. There's a body. Detectives arrived at the location at 7:31 a.m. Riverside Industrial Park was silent. Forgotten. The warehouse had no active tenants. Unit 4B was padlocked shut. When officers forced it open, they immediately saw signs of deliberate confinement. A back room locked from the outside. No windows. No ventilation. Inside lay Alicia Turner. Hands zip-tied behind her back. Ligature marks visible. Wearing the same scrubs from the night she disappeared. The medical examiner confirmed what investigators already feared. She had been dead since March 14th. 11 days. Processing the scene yielded DNA on the zip ties. Partial fingerprints on the door. But the real break came when detectives started asking a different question. Who owned the warehouse? Property records pulled that afternoon revealed the answer. Hargrove Property Management. Bradley Hargrove's company. Inherited from his father years earlier. Bradley had keys. Access.
Control.
Everything shifted. Warrants followed quickly. Phone records. Bank records. Rental agreements. Surveillance footage from surrounding businesses. The story the family had told began to collapse. On March 10th, Tyler Hargrove had an 8-minute phone call with Vincent Cross. On March 11th, Bradley withdrew $25,000 in cash. On March 13th, another $25,000. And then the message that sealed it. March 14th, 6:42 p.m. Tyler texted Vincent. Target leaving now. Green Honda. Plate Charlie David 7283. Alicia's license plate. Sent 7 minutes before she walked out of William's house.
She hadn't been followed by chance.
She had been handed over. Rental records led detectives to the white van. Picked up March 13th using a fake ID. Security footage showed Rayon Silva collecting it. The van was returned March 15th. Forensics inside revealed Alicia's DNA. Fibers from the zip ties. Traces of the crime no amount of cleaning could erase. Vincent Cross and Rayon Silva were identified within days. Both had criminal histories. Both had prior military ties to Tyler. On April 3rd, 2024, arrests were made. Bradley Hargrove, Christine Hargrove, Tyler Hargrove, Vincent Cross, Rayon Silva. 5 people, 1 decision, 1 life erased. And the waiting was over.
The trial that exposed everything.
Trials don't decide the truth. They reveal how much of it people are willing to admit. On September 9th, 2024, the courtroom in Maplewood filled before sunrise. Reporters lined the back wall. Alicia Turner's photo sat on the prosecution table, smiling, alive, frozen in time. William Hargrove's wheelchair was positioned in the front row. He said nothing. He barely moved. But he watched everything. 5 defendants sat together. Bradley Hargrove, Christine Hargrove, Tyler Hargrove, Vincent Cross, Rayon Silva. All 5 pleaded not guilty. The prosecution began where the story always began, with the 31 seconds. The lights dimmed. The security footage played. Alicia pushing William onto the patio. The kiss. The tenderness. The slow exit from frame. When the video ended, the courtroom was silent. The prosecutor let that silence stretch. Then he spoke. "This is not a caregiver exploiting a vulnerable man," he said. "This is a family eliminating a threat to their inheritance." Over the next several days, the state built its case piece by piece. Phone records showed the calls. Bank records showed the cash withdrawals. Rental agreements tied Rayon Silva to the white van. DNA linked Alicia to the zip ties and the warehouse. Experts testified that William Hargrove was fully lucid when he changed his will. Doctors, psychologists, attorneys. There was no manipulation, no confusion, no coercion. There was intent. Then came the text messages. Deleted, but recovered. March 9th. "We can't let her steal what's ours." March 14th. "Target leaving now." The defense tried to frame it as coincidence. Circumstantial evidence. No murder weapon. No eyewitnesses to the killing itself. But then, on the 12th day of trial, something changed. Tyler Hargrove asked to speak to his attorney. Hours later, a deal was struck. Life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years, in exchange for full cooperation. When Tyler took the stand, his father and aunt wouldn't look at him. He told everything. Bradley proposed the plan on March 8th.
Christine knew and didn't stop it.
Tyler contacted Vincent. Vincent brought Rayon. $50,000. Surveillance. The text message. The payment at the rest stop. He described asking Vincent one question. "Is it done?" And Vincent answering. "She's gone." Tyler admitted he went home and slept that night. The courtroom absorbed it in silence. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, there was no drama.
Guilty.
All counts. All defendants. On October 14th, 2024, sentencing was handed down. Bradley Hargrove, life without parole. Christine Hargrove, 25 years. Vincent Cross, life without parole. Rayon Silva, life without parole. Tyler Hargrove, life with parole eligibility after 30 years. Justice on paper had been served, but the damage wasn't finished.
After the verdict, nothing goes back.
A verdict can end a trial. It cannot undo what's been taken. When the courtroom emptied and the cameras shut off, life didn't reset for anyone involved. The guilty verdicts closed one chapter, but the consequences of what happened continued to ripple outward, quietly, painfully, permanently. William Hargrove returned to an empty house. The same walls, the same furniture, The same front door Alicia had walked through for the last time. Her mug still sat beside the sink. A cardigan hung on the back of a chair. A grocery list remained folded on the counter, half-checked, written in her handwriting. No one moved anything. Hospice staff reported that William's condition declined sharply after the trial. He no longer asked about court dates or appeals. He no longer watched the news. He spent most of his days staring at the garden outside the living room window, the place where Alicia had once pushed his wheelchair so gently that neighbors remembered the sight. Friends tried to visit.
He asked them not to.
Grief had become private. On December 2nd, 2024, less than 2 months after sentencing, William Hargrove passed away in his sleep. The death certificate listed natural causes: heart failure, complications of age. But those who knew him understood something else. He didn't survive the loss. At his funeral, Alicia's name was spoken almost as often as his. Photographs of the two of them sat side by side, one elderly man and one young woman, both smiling in moments now frozen forever. William's final will was read the following week. Everything he owned, the house, the savings, the remaining assets, went exactly where he had intended. Alicia Turner's family, her parents, her younger sister, a scholarship fund established in her name for nursing students. The Hargrove family received nothing. Not $1. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The crime that was committed to preserve an inheritance erased it entirely. For Maplewood, the case left scars. The warehouse was demolished. The lot now sits empty, marked only by weeds and cracked asphalt. The grocery store parking lot installed additional cameras. A small plaque near the entrance bears Alicia's name, placed there quietly by community members who refused to let her become just another headline. Online, the story continues to circulate. Podcasts, documentaries, true crime channels. Each retelling adds distance, but never removes the weight. Because at its core, this was never about money. It was about entitlement, about fear, about believing that love could be replaced by control, and about how easily humanity collapses when greed is allowed to speak louder than conscience. Alicia Turner didn't die because she did something wrong. She died because she chose kindness. She chose care. She chose love. She chose to protect a man who needed her. And that choice cost her everything. But it also exposed everyone else. The verdict ended the case. The truth ended the illusion. And what remains is a silence that will never fully fade.
The questions that never go away.
Every true crime story ends the same way, with answers and with questions that refuse to disappear. The investigation into Alicia Turner's death concluded neatly on paper. Arrests were made, verdicts delivered, sentences issued. But closure, the kind people expect after justice is served, never truly arrived. Not for the families, not for the community, and not for those who followed the case closely from the beginning. Because beneath the facts lies a deeper unease. How close did this come to being dismissed? If Alicia's phone hadn't been left behind, would police have assumed she simply vanished? If the anonymous call hadn't come in, how long would the warehouse have remained sealed? If Tyler hadn't taken the deal, how much of the truth would still be buried? Investigators quietly admitted later that this case nearly stalled in its earliest hours. The family's money, their legal counsel, and the clean alibis almost worked. Almost. What ultimately broke the case wasn't technology. It was human error. Greed leaves fingerprints. And fear creates cracks no plan can fully seal. For Alicia's family, grief became layered. They mourned her loss while simultaneously confronting the knowledge of how methodical the crime had been. This wasn't rage. This wasn't panic. It was calculated. Her mother described the hardest moment not as the funeral, but the trial. Listening to strangers discuss her daughter's final hours as evidence, as exhibits, as timelines. She became a case file, her mother said later. Not a person. Maplewood residents echoed a similar discomfort. The idea that something so carefully planned could unfold in familiar places, a grocery store, a warehouse, a quiet street, shattered assumptions of safety. People locked doors sooner. Parents checked in more often. Neighbors paid closer attention. The case changed behavior. Online debate followed. Was Tyler a victim of his upbringing or a willing participant? Should Christine have received a harsher sentence? Was life without parole justice, or just another ending without healing? There are no clean answers. True crime often seduces with resolution, but reality resists it. The only certainty is that choices compound. Small resentments become conversations. Conversations become plans. Plans become actions that can never be reversed. Alicia's life became the cost of those choices. Her scholarship fund now supports 3 nursing students each year. Their acceptance letters include a brief paragraph about the woman whose name funds their education, a woman remembered not for how she died, but for how she lived. That may be the closest thing to legacy this case offers. Not justice, not punishment, but remembrance.
When the story ends, the warning remains.
Every story has an ending, but the ones that matter most don't end cleanly. They linger, not because of mystery, but because of meaning. By the time the headlines faded and the courtroom emptied for the last time, Alicia Turner's name had already begun to slip into the vast archive of solved cases. Another file closed. Another crime explained. Another narrative neatly summarized in a few sentences. But that summary misses the truth. This case was never about how someone died. It was about how far people were willing to go to protect what they believed they were owed. Alicia entered William Hargrove's life quietly. She wasn't searching for wealth, leverage, or advantage. She showed up. She listened. She stayed. In doing so, she reminded him, and everyone watching, that care is an act of dignity, not transaction. That's what made her dangerous. Not because she manipulated him, but because she made the absence of love impossible to ignore. The people who killed Alicia didn't act in a moment of madness. They acted after conversations, after justifications, after convincing themselves that what they were doing was necessary. That's the part of this story that refuses to sit comfortably. Evil didn't arrive screaming. It arrived organized. It arrived with spreadsheets and phone calls and quiet agreements, with rationalizations spoken in living rooms and cars, with silence from those who could have stopped it. And when the plan was complete, they went back to their lives. They slept. They ate. They waited until the truth surfaced anyway, because it always does. Sometimes through evidence, sometimes through fear, sometimes through guilt, and sometimes through someone deciding they can't carry it anymore. Alicia never got a final moment of recognition for the life she saved, the comfort she provided, or the kindness she chose daily. But her absence forced every truth into the open. William Hargrove's estate was never reclaimed by those who felt entitled to it. His legacy passed exactly where he intended, to the family of the woman who treated him like a human being, not a balance sheet. And that, more than any sentence handed down, became the final verdict. So when this story ends, it leaves behind a warning, one that doesn't belong to the courtroom or the news cycle. It belongs to everyday life. Watch how people treat those who can't give them anything in return. Pay attention to how entitlement disguises itself as justification. And remember that kindness, in a world ruled by greed, is often seen as a threat. Alicia Turner paid the price for choosing compassion. The rest of us are left with the responsibility to recognize it, before silence becomes complicity, and before another story like this needs to be told. Music fades out completely.
Before you go, thank you so much for watching and supporting this channel. Your time and attention truly mean a lot to us. If you enjoyed this video and want to continue supporting the stories we share here, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow and allows us to keep bringing you quality content. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss our future uploads. Once again, thank you for being here, take care, and we'll see you in the next video.